listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the NFL Preseason Week 1 preview for Monday, August 5th, 2019. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, here we go. It's time to talk football and actual football on a field following the Hall of Fame game. Brian Blessing in Las Vegas, glad to be with you. And when we talk NFL, the starting point is our good friend Jack. He's the head odds maker for the NFL at Bookmaker. Jack, it was ugly. It's the Hall of Fame game. I'll say this. I don't care what you guys do the rest of your life. Anybody that wants to step up to the plate and play an over in a Hall of Fame game down the road, it's on them. That's buyer beware. They want the clock running and they want to get out of Dodge. My God, they got to play an extra game. That's just more chances for guys to get hurt.
I think it's more an introduction to the new rules than sharpening for the season.
Yeah, no, I mean, the bottom line is that fifth game for the two teams that get saddled with playing the Hall of Fame game, it's not good. But that being said, from the kind of stuff we talk about, clearly Atlanta, Denver, a game under the belt, they're going to play this week. It's clearly you look at the individual matchup and things that might come into play, but the depth guys that will likely be cut could play a little bit better and have more of an impact in a second game just because they were already facing live bullets.
That's definitely true. Especially, I think the coaches, as you alluded to, with players going down so frequently lately that they may not be inclined to play the regulars as much as even they used to, which wasn't much. So they may decrease that time, and that opens up a spot for some young kids.
You brought up a great point, and I think we saw one play where they challenged the interference call. The impact that's going to have, interference calls are part of the game. But the one that stuck out was a few years back when they changed the helmet-to-helmet rule and then even had the penalty for the running backs lowering their head. And we've seen this happen in the NHL too when they make rule changes, be it calling a penalty in a face-off circle, the holding the stick, and the little things that they did when it came to rule changes. You've got to watch in the preseason because the referees are learning how to call that, and they're prone to call it a lot more. So it does have probably more of an impact in the preseason than it will actually when the season rolls around. But that's a tough thing to predict.
That's what they do. I mean, I think the league makes some rules that are good, decent, or with the right intent. However, it's not really accepted by the referees because they've been refereeing for so long and they've been doing it one way. It's like in baseball with the strike zones. They can move the strike zones, but everyone still has their own. So now what happens when the exhibition games come, they try and appease the league by saying, see, we're calling this, we're teaching the players what to do, and then come week one, it all goes back to normal.
All right, so we go to week 2, and you look at some of these games and new faces. Guys going to try to get legged up. I think the thing you got to look for specifically, quarterback battles, even position battles where high-end players would play deeper into games, and that would be maybe specific to offensive lines. But it's always a challenge from the odds maker's perspective. You get a little bit of a fun rivalry thing in the preseason. The Jets and the Giants on Thursday. We're looking at the Jets minus 1.5. The total on the game is 33.5. I think the Jets are a team that's on the improve, Jack, and, from the Giants' perspective, we're watching the quarterback thing. Listen, we know what Eli Manning can or can't do, and the odds are he probably starts the season. But when you look at a young quarterback that they're going to want to get him legged up to face live bullets, you get the quarterback, I think, could play deep into the second half. So you watch the Giants maybe. I think that this may be a way you look at these games a little bit, as I think you really can break them down into halves.
I think the schedule makers, they flipped it. This used to be the last game of preseason, or excuse me, the third week of preseason, and they would go all at it, and there was some pride in it. This can't happen in week 1. I don't know why they would schedule this game here, but as to what you're talking about, I think it will favor the Giants, but if this was in week 3, I think it would favor the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones, I would think they'll let him sling it around a little bit in the second half. And it's about culture. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, the one thing, you're looking at it here, the quarterbacks, Simeon, Webb, Luke Falk for the Jets, and the other side, how deep will Jones go? But Alex Tanney and Kyle Aletta, who's hurt, there's just not much in the offing here from a quarterback perspective in this game.
No, and they have to get them all in the mix, because you look at them now. You can't later on game 3, game 4, or especially game 3. You're going to see the regular players, or at least for half the game, maybe 3/4. So they got to get their time now.
All right, so we go to the next game on the docket here, and that's Indy at Buffalo. Buffalo's 1.5. Total on the game is 34.5. Listen, Andrew Luck was going to have a cup of coffee in this game if he did anything, but he's nicked up. He's not even going to practice this week. For the Bills, I think they want to get Josh Allen some work, but the story coming out of here is the Bills, who had gone way out of their way in the offseason to rebuild their offensive line, have all of a sudden had a slew of injuries, nothing major, it would seem, but on the offensive line. So the guys that were actually going to be competing for the starting job are hurt. I mean, those were guys, and they've got depth at running back. That would have been a thing to watch for in this game. But now the Bills are really mangled on the offensive line. I don't know. I don't think I'd expose Allen to much more than a quarter of play here. So you're looking at basically Matt Barkley against Jacoby Brissett. I don't know. At first blush, I was thinking this could be a higher scoring game, but now I'm thinking they're going to run the ball here and get out of Dodge.
I can see both points of view, and that's why I would have a very difficult time betting exhibition football. It's just unpredictable.
I know. And here's another one, and I don't know that this would be something that the odds makers would, as time goes on, take into account, albeit it's right out of the gate and it's still such a gray area. New England's a 1-point favorite against Detroit. Total's up there at 38.5. This has started to happen a lot, Jack. The Patriots and the Lions, as of this morning, started working out together. So they're going to practice throughout the week and then play the game. So the reality of it is both coaches, who are familiar with one another for starters, may get the meat and potatoes of the work done they want to get done in terms of evaluation in the practice session. And then the games become this vanilla thing, and it's nothing but the real depth players that play in it. It's a different animal when they practice for 3 days before they play each other.
The only thing good about it is it does help create that hostility between players from competing all week, and guys getting beat and guys getting mad. So I think it builds up that way. But the rest of it, you're 100% right on.
Well, and I'm with you, Jack, that you're taking your life in your hands. If you're running around across the board thinking you've got some massive edge betting preseason football. I will say this: there are 3 or 4 games I actually do have a pretty strong opinion on, and one of these would be the Redskins. And you're looking at them, a 1-point favorite at Cleveland. If you look at their quarterback rotation, you got Case Keenum, NFL experience, Dwayne Haskins, who they want to get a good, long, hard look at on the premise that he may start the first-round draft pick. But if you go down to the third rung of this thing, and that's Colt McCoy is like Tom Brady in the preseason. From a quarterback rotation alone, I think Washington maybe save week 3 in a dress rehearsal where the other teams are playing their best players. I think you got to play on Washington in at least 3 of the 4 games in the preseason.
Well, the early money would seem to agree with you. We opened this game a little higher, and it's gone down. And you make a great point with the 3 quarterbacks. And Colt McCoy, who every year when somebody gets hurt comes in and plays real well in the game he's not knowing he's going to play in, and then he goes back to his normal routine the games after that.
I'll give you you'll remember this. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but a guy for a 4-year run, was it Chase Daniels? This kid would come in, he'd sling it around like he was a Hall of Fame quarterback in the preseason. I mean, you get a handful of those opportunities that I think you can trust in preseason. It's hard to trust a lot of the information, but one thing you can trust, for the most part, is the quarterback rotation.
Right. You're right about that.
And then, the same premise exists here, Atlanta and Miami. Now, Miami's a 4-point favorite. Total on the game is 35.5. And, I sit here and look at this. At Bookmaker, you're looking at a total of 36 on the game. You would think Atlanta, a game under their belt, probably we're going to get Matt Ryan, have at least a couple of series in this game. You would think the money would be, or the belief system would be, boy, Atlanta, that's going to be factored into the number because they got a game under their belt. You know what you're coming into here? They played a game. They get that under their belt. But Miami has a defined quarterback battle, Jack, and that's going to be Josh Rosen versus Ryan Fitzpatrick, and maybe neither guy can set the world on fire. But the one thing I maintain, when you have a quarterback battle, everybody looks at the quarterbacks. Okay, yeah. Well, you're evaluating who the quarterback's going to be, who's going to be the guy, the most important position on the field. You know what happens when that happens? The better offensive linemen play deeper into games, because if you're really coin flipping who's your quarterback at the beginning of the season, you're not going to expose one of them to having an awful offensive lineman in front of them and get one of these guys killed.
No, because then their test will be biased. You're right. They have to make it equal. And the other thing is, when a team is predicted for a very bad season, as Miami is, sometimes they're more motivated in the exhibition season to at least try and get some false hope up for their fans.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. All right, and then we move on, and we sit here and yap about Tennessee and Philadelphia. Eagles 3-point favorites. Total on the game is 37. And the funny thing is, here's a game sitting on a key number, and we don't see many of those because, and we alluded this to you in a previous podcast, Jack, key numbers are just not key numbers in preseason.
And I'll tell you the truth, that's we agreed on that last week. And I was thinking about you when Atlanta went for 4th and 14 instead of tying the game up last week.
It's amazing, and it's understandable. These coaches, the bottom line is they're proposing an 18-game regular season schedule. If you've got the answer, Jack, please be the guy and save all of football for us. 4 is too many. 5 if you're Atlanta and Denver. I don't know. I guess 2 would be probably the number. These guys, the difference, Jack. This is just plain common sense. I'm old enough to remember. These guys would come in fat, out of shape, and they get into shape at training camp. These guys have OTAs, training, weight training all year long. It's a year-round job. These guys are always in shape now. Why expose them to all these injuries with extra preseason games?
Well, I don't know if it's still the case, but I know when I was growing up that it was part of the season ticket holders package that you had to buy tickets to the game. And it's
a money grab.
That's it.
That is the crux of the whole thing. Yeah, you buy season tickets, you got to choke on the 2 home games. And the reality of that is, I bet you half of the football fans that are season ticket holders all around the country don't even go to those 2 games.
No, it's probably a time to give your friend, hey, you want some tickets to go to an exhibition game? Who doesn't go year round? Maybe take some kids. It's not. I know I know money drives the league, but sometimes they just go overboard.
Some of the other games, Ravens are 4. The total on the game is 34. Let me just ask you from an odds-making perspective. Boy, there ain't a whole heck of a lot here. I really like Jacksonville as an overplay in this regular season coming up. I think they can bounce back to what they were a couple of years ago. Most importantly, and I'm not talking about Foles, being some outlandishly great quarterback that's driving down to win games. It's just he's not going to lose the games that Bortles did, and there's a ton of talent there. But the odds makers know, the players know. What is the value on Harbaugh always having success in the preseason with the Ravens? What's that worth when you're shading a number before you even hang it?
Well, I think you see it in the opening number. In other words, where this game may have been under 3. I think it opened to 3, and then it just gets driven up by the players who know the same thing. It's just anticipation. It's just knowing coaches that like to win in the exhibition season. They go all out. They go out a little more. Why, I have no idea.
All right, we sold you on Green Bay, 2.5-point favorite. Total on the game is 36. There's another one where they know who their guy is. Why expose him to injury? And Houston's been decimated by injuries. Same deal here. That's kind of a squirrely game. The Bears and the Panthers, we get Chicago a 3-point favorite, minus $1.20. Total on the game is 38. Here's one, Jack, I would say to you, and I did say I had a handful of games where I think there's a belief system that makes sense, and that is the Chargers and the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 2-point favorites. The total on this game is 35.5. Now, specifically, you get Kingsbury coming in here, and he's going to be implementing this high-flying, throw the ball all over the place offense that he had in college football. They're going to see what Kyler Murray can do. Brett Hundley's got a cup of coffee worth of experience, but just the nature of the way they're going to play with this offense, you would envision there'd be more possessions. But the thing that would put it over the top for me to say I think points happen in this game is Tyrod Taylor, I bet you, plays at least a half in this game. Because they'll want him to learn the offense. Rivers is the quarterback. They'll want to get Taylor up to speed, knowing the offense. If the day comes, they're going to need him. But you're going to see a half, maybe more than a half, of Tyrod Taylor, and I think these teams go up and down the field.
I could see that because you're going to have, as you spoke about with Kingsbury, you're going to have. You basically play bland defenses. You have your rookies in there for the most part. You're not using sophisticated schemes, and therefore it's normally a vanilla defense. And I could see your point with the going over, with Taylor playing the extra time, and Kingsbury going up against just a non-confusing defense.
Denver's at Seattle, and we're looking at the Seahawks, a 2-point favorite. The total on the game is 36. Now, again, Denver has a game under their belt, and Locke kind of, I wouldn't say disappointed, but they were hoping to see more from him. I would think this second game, in large part, Flacco again, maybe a couple of series. I think this game for Denver is all about getting Locke a little bit of confidence and getting to work. Russell Wilson, they're not going to expose him to injury. But we're going to be looking at Geno Smith and Paxton Lynch. Not horrific. I mean, nothing great, but in the preseason. And Seattle, maybe this is the one or two cities in the country where the people in Seattle are nuts, Jack. I mean, that is, and Carroll likes to win in the preseason. This one's a squirrely one for me, but Seattle at home only laying 2, I think is the thing that offsets the number, right?
Yes, 100%. This would be over 3 if Denver hadn't played last week, and it'll probably settle in at 3 by the time it's done. Because you have Lynch. Elway was very high on him. He just disappointed in Denver. I always thought he would be good too. This might be his last shot, so he might have more motivation.
All right, then we move on to Friday with Tampa and Pittsburgh and the Steelers. 2.5 total on the game is 37.5. We get the new head coach in Tampa Bay, Jack. Roethlisberger, I don't even know why you'd even bother putting him on the sidelines. But what is a new coach worth in terms of here? And last week, it seemed like it was flying in the face of it. And then what happens? Denver goes down at the end, wins the game, covers the number. New coaches want to change the culture.
Well, they're there for a reason, and normally it's not because there was great success before. You're coming in, you're trying to rebuild the situation, and the only way to do that is to start winning.
All right, then Minnesota and New Orleans. I forget Cousins and Brees, right? But you look at the backup quarterbacks. Sean Mannion with Minnesota. Good luck to you with Kyle Sloter and Jake Browning after that. On the bottom end, New Orleans has Teddy Bridgewater, and everything they say. Taysom Hill, they've got all these crazy packages in for Taysom Hill in the regular season because he's just an incredible athlete. But what do they talk about every time this kid makes a play? Oh, Peyton loves him. They think he can be the quarterback of the future. at the end of this game or the second half of this game, Peyton's going to do everything he can to give this Hill some confidence to see if he really is the quarterback of the future. New Orleans makes sense to me in this spot.
Yes, New Orleans would look like, if I was going to play it, it would be New Orleans, and for mostly the reasons that you stated. He's going to have to find out about this. I don't think this kid is the answer. I think he's great in these packages. I don't think he'll ever be the quarterback of the future.
And then we go to Saturday and just, look at the numbers that are up there as we have the final three games. And that's the Chiefs 3.5, total 36.5. Rams, Raiders are 4, totals 36. And what else? We get Cowboys and Niners. And Niners 4, total on the game is 36. Again, the last, does it build, Jack, from a handle perspective? You get the games Thursday, Friday, but then you get these final batch of games. Does the handle continue to go up as the week moves along? Oh, yes. There's no interest in it today. Today would be people trying to take an early lead. There might be, actually, this we put up last week, but when we put up next week's schedule on Monday, there'll be some kibitzers. They'll be trying to take a lead. But then at game day, then you get the people that want to watch it on TV or root for their local teams. Final thing for you. So, and again, every game is a snowflake, but when you get a full menu of games now, might have, if you call on experience from past years, are there some trends from the betting market in week one of the preseason that you catch, that you'll apply into week two? What are some of the things you'll watch for in terms of trends from the betting public? Well, first you find out, even if you're scouting lines, whether it be college basketball, NFL regular season, you'll see popular teams. Kansas City last year. There's always a new face that the people want to bet on because they become fans of them for whatever reason. Now, you'll see that a little, but more important than any of that is just reading all the little stories during the week about which coach may be more motivated to win, which coach may be more inclined to play his regulars longer. That becomes the basis of it. So, Jack, be honest with me. Yep. We're all excited for football. We love football. We miss football. But when that ball was kicked and went into the air to start the Hall of Fame game, be honest. Did you say to yourself, I'll get my life back in February? No. Jack, this NFL is enjoyable. Major League Baseball is enjoyable. College basketball is a grind. That's the hard one, isn't it? I mean, when those Saturdays and when college football is on the back half and college hoops opens up, are those Saturdays just unbelievable for you? They are quite hectic, and it's the grind of 7 days a week with that college basketball, late games on the West Coast. That's work. The rest of it is fun. There you go. We are just underway. First week of preseason football, and we've got great information from the other side of the counter. He's our good friend, Jack from Bookmaker. All right, Jack, thanks. Enjoy week one of the preseason. We'll chat with you next week. All right, sounds great. Thank you. Always love talking with Jack from Bookmaker, and we love talking football. Betmaker, let's make some money tonight. Well, that's the Betmaker show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com. And reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At Betmaker.com and The Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling, an approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.